Welcome back, everybody. Today I thought I'd be doing something a little different. We're going to be taking a look at 5 Game Boy games that I consider to be cheap but sweet games for the Game Boy that can be had for under about $10 and are very good games. Games that maybe in some cases you may not have heard of. I tried to pick some stuff that wasn't quite as well known, but for the most part is well known, I guess you could say. I wanted to avoid the easy stuff like Motocross Maniacs, for instance, or tennis. Cheap games that most people know about. So I hope you'll find something different in here. They're games that are very high quality, I feel, and are most importantly under about $10. So stick around. So the first game we're going to be taking a look at today is Revenge of the Gator from HAL. Most people will know them as the creator of Kirby, a game series that coincidentally started its life on the Game Boy. Revenge of the Gator is a pinball game with a alligator theme to it. It's one of the few games that came out around the launch of the Game Boy system and still really maintains its playability, graphics. It's a very nice little game to look at. Very well made. It only has the one table, but it's a very, very well done table. And it was made to fit the Game Boy's black and white screen for clarity and gameplay. As you play through the table, you'll complete certain objectives that will open up little subtables with little extra bonuses to complete, such as clearing a field of various items and rolling slot machines like this here. It's a very addictive game. Unfortunately, it does not save your high score. That's probably the one downside to it. But on the other hand, it also makes it very worthy of a new collector for Game Boy to pick up, given its relative common availability and most of all, cheap price. And that's why it is clocking in our top 5. The next game we'll be looking at today is Korf from Konami, or in this case under the Ultra Games label, which is a popular label they used at the time to release a lot of popular Nintendo games, such as the Ninja Turtles, Gyrus, Metal Gear, games of that nature. Korf was a puzzle game that came out around the craze of the Tetris movement. Except in this game, you have blocks that fall from the sky, but you also fire to clear. So you move the ship at the bottom of the screen here back and forth, and you're able to launch blocks. You'll see these blocks coming down. You can advance them by pushing up, and what you have to do is clear a section of these blocks in order to score and to remove them from the game field. This is another very addictive puzzler that can once again be had very cheap. Korf originally came out in the arcades in Japan and subsequently ended up on a lot of different consoles and computer systems. with various ports by Konami. The Game Boy one here is very well done. And even though it's missing some of the more fancier graphics of the arcade and maybe some of the other ports, it plays well and is very clean to look at. Highly recommend it for anybody who's looking for a puzzler. It's a little different and not quite the Tetris clone that a lot of these other Tetris clones tried to be. And for that case, that's why it makes it onto our list. Be sure to check it out. Coming off the heels of Korf, we have, a Tetris game. Although in this case, not from the people who created Tetris, but by Jellico. Tetris Plus. Tetris Plus is an interesting game because it not only includes the original Tetris, although not as well done as the original Nintendo release that was shipped with the system, but it also includes this puzzle mode, which is the most important part of it, which is right here. This is also an arcade port. It had a very well done port to the PlayStation 1 back in the day. We're just going to start a new game here. So the objective of this game is to fix the puzzle pieces so that you are allowing the little Pith Helmet Explorer to get to the bottom of the level of the screen there. You see where it says goal? So what we have to do is we have to clear the blocks that are already existing using Tetris pieces to get him to touch the ground. And with that, we've won the level. Then he drops down to the next stage. A lot of people seem to think that this is a little copy of Mario, or could even be Mario, but this has nothing to do with Nintendo. Some of these original first levels of the game here that you're going to have to deal with are pretty easy, as you can see. But the difficulty does ramp up, and it really does start to make you think a little bit as you move along. So even though you have the original Tetris with this, you also have this really neat puzzle mode, which is really the meat and potatoes of this game. So as you drop blocks down, you can't crush him, but he will climb up. And that's going to be the problem, because as you can see at the top of the screen, you have these spikes that are constantly lowering down, which puts us on a bit of a time level. So if you don't figure this out quickly, you're going to be in some deep trouble. So you can clear a line here and there, but it's not going to matter because he's just going to start moving along and climbing and dropping based on the block placement. And there he goes as he gets to the top. That's when your trouble starts. And our hero is vanquished. So the next game we're going to take a look at is Monster Rancher Explorer from Tecmo. Believe it or not, this game is actually a sequel to the Solomon's Key series. In Japan, it was known as Solomon and was a direct sequel to Solomon's Club, which was a Game Boy port of Solomon's Key. A very fun puzzle game involving blocks. When they brought it to the West, though, they decided to redo everything and give it a little spruce makeover using the Monster Rancher IP, which was their popular Pokemon clone series at the time during the craze of Pokemon. So we're just going to sign in here new. We're going to exit here, and we're going to go up this tower, which each floor has a puzzle room in, just like the Solomon's Key games we all know and love. To me, in my opinion, this is one of the better Game Boy Color exclusive titles. And although I don't know if it takes necessarily full advantage of the color graphics, it certainly looks nice and is very easy to play and well to control. You can jump with up, take out the blocks with the A button, and what you need to do is get these enemies on the blocks such as this. And sometimes you'll uncover these little secret coins such as that. Once you get your key, you go up here. You gotta get out of the exit before the timer runs out. I can't remember how many stages there are offhand, or rooms, I guess you could say. I want to say there's 50. And some of them can get very tricky as you go along. But this is considerably one of my favorite Game Boy games, and Game Boy Colors for that matter. Now the game has been rising up in price a little bit, but if you look around, you should be able to still find it around $10. It does have a battery backup, so it will save off where you left off in the game, which will enable you to come back and revisit it at another point. If you collect 10 of those fairies, you'll get an extra life. It's a very nice little game, and if you have a Game Boy Color, I highly recommend you check it out. And finally, the last game we're going to be taking a look at today is Lock and Chase from Data East or Sunsoft, depending on which version of the cartridge you get. This is another one of my favorite ports of an arcade game for the Game Boy. It's very well done, and much like their Burger Time port, is almost a totally different take on the original arcade game. It's a little bit of a Pac-Man clone at the time for the arcades. But one thing I do like about this game is the extra little story moments they included here. And they just kind of scaled it down to fit the Game Boy's form factor and overall technology. As you can see here, you can walk around and you have to pick up these, I believe they're supposed to be coins because you're a bank robber. And you have to kind of take out the cops, or who were essentially Inky, Pinky, Clyde, Blinky. And what you can do is, as you walk around, you'll see these little nubs sticking out of the wall here. Those allow you to put little barricades up to kind of block them off. They come in handy a little more later in the game. Early on, not so much, because it's pretty easy to outwit them on your own. Fun game, and definitely under $10 worth of fun involved here. I urge everybody to give this game a look. In my opinion, it's one of the more underrated titles for the Game Boy as a whole. And perfect for collectors who are just starting out especially. So here are all the games we took a look at today. One other extra little bonus game I thought I'd throw in would be the Nintendo port of Kicks from the arcade for the Game Boy. It's a fun game that's under $10. It's a puzzle game. I'm sure everybody knows about this one because of the Mario skits that they put inside of him, celebrating various cultures all over the world, from wearing a sombrero to other things that people may deem a little sketchy. But it's a fun game regardless. I think everybody should check it out. And if you can have any, recommendations or anything that you feel should be on this list, or any other games that you feel are great and play well on the Game Boy and are cheap especially, please leave a comment below. I'd love to see what your thoughts are on this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take care.